Welcome to another edition of Phil's Morning Drive. Today we're behind the wheel in the 2017 Nissan Rogue Sport. This is a new version of the Rogue for 2017, and things are a little bit different, but they're not extremely different than the base Rogue model. The main difference is giving it a sportier look, especially on the back end of the car. Styling-wise, once you get past kind of the driver's door and go backwards from there, especially the rear tailgate, liftgate area, that looks totally different than the regular Rogue. And the idea behind this car is to give folks a little bit more of a compact look, even more compact than the regular Rogue, but also to give it more of a sporty look and a sporty feel. They've given it a little bit more of an aggressive front end, a little subtle changes here and there on that side of things, little subtle changes inside as well. And it really adds up to be a package to really try to get into this really specific niche of buyers who are looking for small, compact crossover SUVs. Something I've talked a lot about on my blog lately and also in a couple of these videos is the fact that the appetite for SUVs continues to grow, and manufacturers are continuing to kind of whittle away at what is like the absolute niche version of a niche version of an SUV. And so that really is what I think of when we talk about the Nissan Rogue Sport. A lot of folks are wanting a crossover SUV. They're wanting something that's in that kind of small to mid-sized range, and they want something to be a little bit sporty. And so when you add those things together, it really starts to get into very, very specific wants that people have. And so the Nissan Rogue Sport is really trying to fill that void. There really aren't a lot of sporty versions, if you will, of SUVs in this price range. This car retails for right around $23,000 with a middling amount of options. And a fully loaded one of these it's pretty comparable price-wise to the regular Rogue. It's just a matter of, do you want something that errs a little bit more on the side of sportiness? But it does have this peppy little feel to it. It's kind of a hard feeling to explain unless you get behind the wheel yourself, but the engine feels kind of peppy, the steering feels peppy. The seating position took me a little while to get used to. I wasn't really sure if I liked it or not, but the more I drive it, this wheel's kind of angled a little bit. You sit up a little bit tall, the wheel feels kind of low, even though I've tilted it up. And so your arms are kind of outstretched, but it's a comfortable driving position. It's just not a typical SUV position. The other thing about making a car like the Rogue Sport is that these days, a lot of people are more concerned with on-road manners. You know, 20 years ago, if you bought an SUV, it was because you were going to be taking it off-road at least some of the time. Most people that buy this car, a little bit of gravel is going to be the only type of off-roading that they're going to do. So they like the body style, they like the look of it, they like the space for passengers and cargo, but they want something that drives a little bit sportier because most of the time they're going to be on pavement. Now this car only has 141 horsepower, which is pretty low by today's standards, but I think a lot of folks will see that and they'll say, well, wait a minute, this is supposed to be the sporty version, shouldn't it be more powerful? But I think sport in a car like this really is more of a mindset and really more of an overall feeling with handling, with the suspension, with the way the car feels, the look of it. All of those things coming together adds up to that sport name, if you will. This is really a car for a person who doesn't want to spend a ton of money, but would still like to get the experience of having an SUV that's a little bit sporty. They probably have no interest in driving off-road. They just like the look of an SUV, they like the driving position, they like the cargo space. And so that is really where the Rogue Sport is trying to attract some customers. One of the reasons I chose this car for the show is the unique color. Now this color is called Nitro Lime, and I've got the brochure here, and they have a few other unique colors like this Monarch Orange, Palatial Ruby. Those are some really interesting colors. An orange car is just not something that you see very often. Palatial Ruby I've actually seen in person. It looks really, really good. It's a very nice red that you can opt for. Caspian Blue has just a hint of a purple hue to it, so that makes that kind of different. If you don't want to get this crazy, you can still go with the traditional whites and silvers, and there's a magnetic black, and then there's a gunmetal, and then this mocha almond that has a little bit of a brown tone to it. But you can get leather in this car. This is the charcoal cloth, but and I don't think that it looks bad. You know, I'm usually pretty critical of cloth seats because a lot of them start to do these kind of patterns and different things, but this one, this isn't bad. I like the way these feel. The pattern isn't outrageous. It doesn't look goofy or anything like that. On the pros list, definitely features. You can get a lot of neat things on this. You can get a nav system, you can get leather, you can get a lot of the safety features that have become more and more popular. Things like lane departure warning, also blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert. All of those things you can get on this Rogue Sport, which is still a pretty reasonably priced car in the low $20,000 range. I mean, that's probably one of the more affordable SUVs on the market. On the cons list, power. This car only has 141 horsepower, which is not a lot, especially to be carrying a sport badge. But on the other hand, I think it would just be nice if they would, I mean, this engine's okay. I think it would be nice if they would offer an engine with more horsepower, especially if you're going to call it a sport version. And so that's really something I think that they could look into. Some other things on the cons list: when you choose the sport version, you do lose a little bit on cargo space, and you do lose a little bit into the back as far as headroom and things, but I don't think that's necessarily a deal breaker either. But the great thing about that is that you can just get a regular Rogue, which will solve quite a few of these problems. If you're looking for a small SUV, I strongly recommend that you check out the Nissan Rogue, especially if you're wanting to stay under $30,000 or under $25,000 even, depending on what your budget is. And now that they've added this sport version, I think there's even more value because it's something that is not offered by anybody else. You can't get a Chevrolet, you can't get a Toyota, you can't get a Honda that has a sport version of an SUV that they already have. And this car is peppy, it has a good feel to it, it handles reasonably well. For the price, you get a lot of features, and it's really something I think that you should consider, especially if you don't really care about off-road ability, and especially if you want to get some funky colors. This Nitro Lime will certainly solve that problem for you. Well, thanks for watching this edition of Phil's Morning Drive. You can check out a lot more of our great content by going to our website. That's philsmorningdrive.com. We'll see you next time.